If you have tinnitus, you've probably thought at some point, my tinnitus is the loudest. Mine has to be worse than everyone else's. I hear that line all the time in clinic, and honestly, I thought the same thing for years with my own tinnitus. But here's the truth, it doesn't actually mean your tinnitus is louder than anyone else's. Today, I want to dive deep into why tinnitus feels louder sometimes, why it seems worse at night or after a bad night's sleep, and what you can do to take back control and retrain your brain. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your perception matters more than the sound itself. First, let's talk about why tinnitus feels so loud. A lot of people think that if the ringing is loud in their ears, something is wrong, that it must be getting worse or that their tinnitus is the worst. But the real issue isn't the volume, it's actually your brain. Think about it like this. Your brain filters out most of the noise around you. You don't notice your fridge humming, the ticking of a clock, or the sound of cars far away. That's called sensory filtering. Tinnitus is different because your brain is paying attention to it. Every time you check it, think about the pitch or worry about whether it's louder than yesterday, your nervous system responds by increasing the priority of that sound. In other words, your brain says, this matters, let's turn the volume up so you don't miss it. And that's why everyone feels like their tinnitus is the loudest. But in reality, it's not louder, it's just getting the most attention. Another big factor is time of the day, especially at nighttime and sleep. Have you ever noticed your tinnitus seems unbearable when you lie down to sleep or after a rough night? That's not your ears playing tricks on you, it's actually just your brain. Of course, at night there's less external sound. Your brain is used to processing a lot of sensory information during the day, conversations, traffic, music, alerts, notifications. But when the world goes quiet, tinnitus becomes the most interesting thing for your brain to focus on. Suddenly your nervous system is saying, this is all we have, let's pay attention to it. And when you're sleep deprived, your brain simply can't filter the sound as efficiently. Sleep is crucial for cognitive processing, emotional regulation, and filtering out unnecessary sensory input. So if you're tired, stressed, or drained, your tinnitus seems louder because your brain is less able to ignore it. So the spikes you're noticing at night or after a bad sleep, they're totally normal. Your tinnitus isn't actually worse, but your perception is louder because your brain is tired and ultimately bored. This brings us to one of the biggest mistakes people make, constantly monitoring their tinnitus. I've been there, okay, and it is a rough cycle. You know the drill, every 5 minutes, checking the pitch, asking yourself, is it louder than yesterday? Scrolling online for magic cures, it's exhausting and it actually makes the tinnitus feel a lot worse. Every time you obsessively check it, you reinforce the idea in your nervous system that it's important. Your brain interprets this as, this is a priority, let's amplify it. The people who say their tinnitus is quiet, so like my dad for example, their brain has just stopped giving it that VIP treatment like we are. It's still there, but it's just background noise to them now, and the difference isn't the sound, it's the attention you give it. So for example, I thought tinnitus was normal throughout my life until I started asking people if it is normal. They say no, and my tinnitus is just increased. But now I know a lot about tinnitus, it is to the back of my mind and it feels a lot less louder because I've just gotten used to it. So what can you do to break this cycle and feel more in control? There are 3 key strategies that can help retrain your brain. The first one is to stop scanning for it. Every time you check tinnitus, you reinforce the idea that it matters. If you start noticing when you're doing this, then gently redirect your focus to something else. For example, a conversation, a task, or music. Think of it as teaching your brain that this sound isn't a threat. Number 2, add gentle background sounds. This doesn't mean blasting music to drown it out. We've all been there. This can just create dependency. Instead, use low-level noise like a fan, soft rain sounds, or a sound generator. You're not hiding the tinnitus, you're just giving your brain another option to pay attention to, which reduces the focus on the ringing. And number 3, try to reframe the spikes when they happen. Tinnitus spikes are completely normal, and most people who have tinnitus experience them. You may notice that these spikes happen after a stressful day, a bad night's sleep, illness, caffeine, or even hormonal changes. But instead of panicking, pause and remind yourself that this is perception, not danger. The calmer your reaction, the faster your brain downgrades the sound to the background noise. This is where cognitive behavioural therapy is very, very helpful, and it's helped me tremendously. Just learning different tools can really, really help you in times of need. But let's just talk about the end goal, the bigger picture, which is habituation. The goal isn't silence, essentially. That's not realistic when you have tinnitus. Unless you've gone to the doctors and they say it's earwax that the problem is, then you can get it removed and obviously cure the tinnitus as a result of that. But that's not realistic in a lot of cases. The goal is to reach a point where the sound exists, but your brain no longer reacts to it as a threat. And that's what habituation essentially means. When the tinnitus is there, but it's not controlling your attention anymore, your mood, or ultimately your life. You can get there, and it takes patience and practice, but the key is attention control. If your brain isn't monitoring it, it's not loud. If your brain is distracted by life and gentle sound, the tinnitus fades into the background naturally. So here are some practical examples of how this works. Evenings at home, for example, you can play gentle music or nature sounds while cooking and cleaning. Don't try to hide the tinnitus, just give your brain something else to focus on. Before bed, instead of checking on your ears, spend a few minutes doing a breathing exercise. Read a book or do some light stretches. Let your brain down-regulate before sleep. I personally find journaling very helpful. It just gets everything out of my mind before I go to bed. I can wake up with a clear head and I can just look back at my to-do list without trying to think about it all night. For days where you haven't slept well, if your tinnitus feels louder after these kind of restless nights, just remind yourself that perception is louder and it's not reality. Add soft background sounds during the day to help your brain recalibrate. These small steps, practiced consistently, can gradually retrain your nervous system. And once you start noticing that your attention controls the loudness, everything changes. No, it's not a quick fix, and I know that firsthand, but honestly, I've never felt this happy in my life, and I feel like all of these tips have just helped me become a much better person. So here's the key takeaway. You don't have the loudest tinnitus. You just have the most attention to it at this moment, and that's something that can absolutely change. Drop a comment below and share your experience. You're honestly not alone, and understanding this is the first step to regaining control. If you want more tips on retraining your brain and living with tinnitus, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and check out my other videos where I break down real strategies that work. And just remember, tinnitus isn't about the sound itself, it's about your brain, and your brain can adapt to learn to ignore it.